So what's the difference between the two? What you do?
All right, let's see. I have this turned on, but I'm not sure. Hey, Stefan, can you see what's going on? Can you see the image? I was trying to watch on my laptop and nothing's up, so I wasn't sure if it's showing.
Hi, Michelle. So it says.
Yeah.
Where am I supposed to see?
Over here.
Yes, but it's in portrait.
Oh.
What does that mean?
I don't know. I have to turn this. Hold on. If it's like that, is that better?
That's better.
Okay. Rearranging. Sorry. Everyone close their eyes while I shake this around. Oh! Shoot! That did not work. Should have tested this first. Not sure why it's not showing up here.
Susie Hernandez says hello from Los Angeles.
Hi, Susie.
And Saucy Kelly says I'm here.
Oh, wait, there it is. Okay. Hi, Susie. So there'll be a delay, Lori, in sound. You'll hear me afterwards. Oh, wait, there it is. So we might need to do that on that one so we don't hear me echoing. Okay, I think we are set up. Hello and welcome to those that have already checked in. I apologize for a little technical issues here at the start. My name is Michelle Houghton. If some of you have seen me online, I am over at Copic In the Craftroom. That is now my site. And I am running that now. It used to be part of Imagination International and our teaching team there. And I was running it for them, and now they have given that to me because we've kind of disbanded our teaching team. And then you can also find me over at my blog on scrapweaver.com. But for tonight, I get to color this amazingly fun image by Anne from StampAnniething. So we are going to color up this little girl, and I believe her name is Michelle, which you gotta love because that's me. This looks nothing like me. I don't have short hair, but she's awfully cute, so we'll go with it. And what we decided to do for the evening, for this evening, was to do a monochromatic, because in the month of March we have a day that is literally National Purple Day, and so we decided we'd go all purple. And so I'm using only violet markers and a few blue violet markers, so everything we color is going to be in that violet and blue violet range. And then the card that Anne created to go along with this image is also all in purples. So hopefully you got the digital file and then the cut files for the card, and I think you've got a list of the colors, but I will go through that as well. Obviously, if you check in later and watch this later, you'll have all of those pieces too, so you'll be able to just watch and follow along with the coloring as we do it. I have my daughter sitting at my right with my laptop, and so if you do have questions, she's actually going to read them and throw them at me so that I can answer. And that way I don't have to try to read and color at the same time. But if you've got any questions, please ask, because I certainly don't want to throw you guys off or not answer any questions. And as I'm coloring, I might give you a little more information about myself and kind of I know Anne has information about her stamp club if she wants to share that, if people are new to that. I think that's mostly it. But we're gonna color this lovely little girl up, and hopefully you saw when you got your group of stamps that you can use one of 3 images. This time there's actually 3 different versions of this little girl. She comes in these overalls, like the one we've got cut out, and then she comes with shorts, a little overall short outfit. I know I had them somewhere, but now I've hidden them from myself. Oh, there they are. She comes with shorts, and she also comes with a skirt, and we did a little variation on her hair clip as well. So she's got a little flower and a butterfly and kind of a standard clip going. So she's awfully cutie patootie. But you get all 3 of those. And then the cut file for the cards. I'm literally gonna have to have someone come and teach me how to use my electronic cutter, because I couldn't get it to work, and I know it should. I know it would if I knew how to use it correctly. So hopefully you know how to use yours better and can use it versus how I kind of rigged mine. And I'll show you that at the end. So we're gonna start, and we are gonna start with her skin, and we're gonna do her skin and her hair and then her clothes. I'm kind of like Stefan in that I really do start almost all the time with skin and then go to hair and get those parts done first. So I am gonna start with her skin, which is gonna be the largest part of her, and I am using 2 markers. I am using a V000 and a V01, and I'm not gonna be able to, there we go. They're almost in focus, not quite, but hopefully you can see the numbers at least. So I'm gonna start, I tend to start with my lightest color first. I will see if I can find a spot. Ooh, if I do it above, this is gonna work. There we go. So I'm gonna start with my lightest color first. And I am going to color that whole face in. So this is my V000. Now for me, I always have to really slow down around the eyes with these beautiful little images. And I usually remember on the right eye, or my left, so the left eye. And then once I come over here and I'm coloring away again, I forget on the other side, on my right side, to avoid the whites of her eyes. So I'm gonna try to be really careful tonight and try to avoid the whites of her eyes. But I'm giving it a nice base coat. Now I tend to do some small circles, but that part isn't so important. A lot of times the reason we teach it that way is so you get a nice, smooth, even coverage. Get that nice base layer. I'm gonna turn this so I can get around that eye a little bit more easily. All right, and then my goal, if I can, while her skin is still a little damp, is to come in. Ah! Anne says that's what white gel pens are for. I want to try to come in while it's still wet and add some of that shading. So, sorry, let me move this up into view. This is my V01. And Laura, you can tell me if I fall off the screen. Give me a shout. So I'm coming in from the sides and I'm coming in on her little cheekbone, kind of brushing in, doing a little bit of a flicking motion. So that means I'm setting the marker down and kind of picking it up as I do that stroke. And she's got a nice round little face, so I am gonna come in mostly from the edges. I'll come in a little bit further along the jawline and up on those cheekbones, kind of underneath the eyes. and a little bit further over the eyes as well, but from under the hairline. The other place that I'm going to add a little bit of detail on her is I am going to give her just a hint of a nose. So I'm going to come in and I'm just giving the hint of it. I'm not going to try to like go underneath it, but I'm just going to create really short, and then I'm softening it off to one side. So this is like on the edge of her nose and off to the one side. So I've got some shading on there, and then I'm going to go back with my lighter color, and I'm going to work right where those two colors meet. I'm going to do some small circles. So I'm going on top of that darker color and kind of pulling it onto that lighter color. I'm going to do the one side of the nose. So I'm going to leave that kind of sharp edge. And I might have to color over most of the area again. Where that ink is dry, if I don't color it again, sometimes I end up with a watermark. So it's really subtle. I'm not adding a whole lot of depth. It's really, really subtle. So the one other thing I'm gonna do on the face, actually two other things, because I like to do some little fun details, is I'm gonna let this sit for just a second. You can wave it around. A lot of people, if they get really impatient, have their the little dryer. But I'm gonna come back in one more time with my darker color, and I'm gonna add a cast shadow, and that's where her hair is actually casting a shadow on her skin. So I'm gonna use that darker, that V01, and I'm gonna add kind of a crisp shadow, and I might have to use an even darker color, but for right now, I must have used a darker color. I'm gonna create just the start of that shadow right at her hairline. And I need to add a little bit of shading underneath her chin. I'm trying to remember. I think it's the next color when I do that. So now we've got two other little areas of skin, is her little arms. So we're gonna do that as well while we have these two colors out. So I'm gonna go and color her arms with that V000. I see a bunch of people all saying hello and checking in and visiting with each other, and that's good. Much discussion about cutters.
Yeah.
Yes, which obviously I'm not going to be able to help you a lot with. I have the Brother Scan and Cut, which I love because I cut everything out that I doodle, and I do a lot of that. So I do a lot of scanning of my doodles and then cutting, which it works great for. So I've got that V000 on her arms, and then I'm gonna come back in and I'm gonna add a little bit of shading, and I'm gonna come from the outside in. I'm just saying that the lighting is kind of a general overhead, kind of sunshiny day kind of lighting. So I'm really just trying to give her form as much as anything, giving her a little roundness. And then I'm going back to that V000 if I need to, and just softening that edge between the two. Oh, and let's not forget her little tongue. Since we're sticking with purple, I'll stick with that light. And because we can, we'll come back in with that dark right at the corners of her tongue, just to give it, again, that shape. All right, so that is kind of the just beginning part. That's got her skin. We used really just two tones, and I'm gonna remind myself real quickly here. Is that? So the next group of colors I'm gonna use are for her hair. And again, I'm very similar in that I like to spend time, more time on her skin and hair. So the next part I'm gonna work on is actually her hair. And the first color I'm gonna use is actually a V12. I'm pretty sure though, this is what color I actually used to create some of those cast shadows on her face. And I actually gave her a few freckles. Now, this is completely optional step. The freckles are, the cast shadow is not. So one thing I like to do to add that realism or really make an image kind of stand out more is I come back in and I kind of mapped it out with my lighter marker, but I want to give a nice crisp cast shadow underneath her hairline. And these are not ones that I blend in. I literally leave it as sharp as that, sitting kind of on top of the skin tone. And if I'm using regular skin tones with my earth tones or YRs, yellow reds, a lot of times I'll actually come in with a blue, violet, or a gray to create those cast shadows. But since we're all purple today, these are gonna stay purple. And then I'm gonna add some freckles. And the freckle part, that's a completely optional step. And it is one thing that if you put on there and hate, you usually can go back over with your original colors and kind of erase. But I'm gonna give her a few little freckles. So I'm gonna go way vertical. So my pin's literally gonna get in the way of the camera. I'm gonna go way up on the tip of my brush nib, and I'm literally gonna add just a few little dots on each cheek. So 5 or 6 little dots. And then she's gonna have just a few on her little nose, the bridge of her nose, because isn't that where we all have freckles? At least we have freckles in my family. I have a mother who is one big freckle, and I am very freckly as well. My daughter can attest to. So I often draw little images with freckles. Now, if I got to this point and I'm like, oh my gosh, she looks more like she has measles, not freckles, and it's awful, I could use those original skin tones again. I could actually go back with my V000 and go over that whole area. It's at least gonna soften it, but if you work it enough, it'll actually make it completely disappear. So if you hate the freckles, even after, you can go back and get rid of those freckles. So we're gonna use the same color, this V12, to start the hair. And I'm gonna work from light to dark, and I'll kind of backtrack on this one as well. For the lightest color, I'm gonna use kind of a little bit broader side of my brush nib, and I'm gonna flick from the hairline, and you can kind of see where it gets narrower at the end of the stroke, but it's not a super fine stroke to start. And then from the bottom edges, I'm gonna flick up. Now, one of the things I try to remind everybody when you're doing hair is that your piece of paper turns. Don't try to crank your arm upside down or around your table. Always remember, so if your hand flicks from left to right or from right to left, turn your image on its head, turn it around so that it works best for you. So let's do this section first, and then we'll do more of it. This is a pretty simple head of hair as head of hairs go, because it's this nice straight short hair. If anything, we've got a little bit of a trick working around the clip in this section. Now, as I get darker, my next one is actually V06. I'm gonna go more vertical with my marker, and I'm gonna use fewer strokes. So the strokes are still just as long. They kind of curve around with the hair, but I'm not gonna have as many. They might have some shorter, some longer. I'm gonna turn her a little bit and come down from the bottom up, a few longer little flicks. And then, oh, I skipped one. That's why it was looking funny. V04, and it's okay. I'm gonna come back in. This is a little bit lighter tone. What I love about Copics is even if you do them out of order, it is no big deal. I can still come back in and add those midtones right back in, because I'm gonna go back through most of these colors anyway. My V17 is where I'm gonna use the fewest strokes. So again, I'm trying to work mostly vertical with my marker at this point, and I'm working from her part outward, and I'll have a few strokes that are longer and a few that are shorter, but I have much fewer of this color. So once I've got a few of them in there, I'm gonna go back through my colors. So that was my darkest, that was the V17. I'm actually gonna skip my 2 midtones this time because I feel like my lighter one is gonna help me soften some of those colors. So I'm gonna go all the way back to my V12, and I'm gonna actually work a little bit from this clip outward. And I'm also gonna work from those edges just a little bit. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna soften some of those colors. And this is the best part. And this is what I love when I watch Stefan color. It's so fun to see someone else do this where you go back and forth and you're just playing with that color until you find that nice, you kind of settle into something that you love. Find that perfect combination. I'm gonna go one last time with my dark, and I'm gonna hit some of these little places where we're seeing that separation of those sections to kind of accentuate those a little bit. There we go. Just to add to that. What was the question about pencils, Lori? Did you see that one?
Or is pencils? Pencils get 3 to 5 layers.
Of colors?
Yeah.
Honestly, with this, I've got 4 colors. I've got the V112, V04, V06, and V17. But on hair, it's gonna vary from each head of hair. Some of them I will do like 2 or 3 colors, and other ones have, I mean, up to 6 to 8 colors. So that varies considerably. Now I've left a little tiny bit of white. You can see a little bit of white showing. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't. As I get into this broader section over here, you might see a little bit more white in that, right in that middle, kind of that highlight area. And what you'll see is if you've done it from the part down and the bottom edge up, you'll see kind of a halo or a circular effect with that highlight, and that's just showing that shiny, healthy hair. So that's something we're actually going for. So I'm gonna do the same layering on this big section over here. And then as I get into the midtones, I probably won't put the lighter color, but I'll just start with my midtones. This part of the hair that's behind her, that's actually falling behind her shoulders, that's gonna be the darkest area. So it's gonna be a smaller piece, so I might go ahead and color that at the same time, but we know that it's gonna start with the midtones and actually go into darker. So we'll start on this big section with the lightest color, and then we'll add those other sections in as we get going. Are there any other questions? Are we good? We're good? Okay. So on this one, now I've got to do some longer. So I'm going to turn her a little bit. And again, with this first color, I am using a little bit broader stroke. You can see it's not as thin, and that's okay. You'll probably see me go outside the lines a little bit. Always when you're trying to go so carefully. So I've got that first layer. You can see that white highlight right in that kind of halo vicinity. Then V04. Get more up on the tip of that marker, this time fewer strokes. Then I'm going to come underneath and kind of fill in right near her neck. Oops, got too close. Sorry about the wiggle. So it's mostly filled in on that back section. But as we start doing some of these darker colors, it'll get even darker because that is falling behind her, and so it is going to stay darker. So the next one is V06. And again, way up on the tip of that marker. I'm trying to do some longer strokes that go the length of that hair. She just looks like she's got one of those really cute little bobs. So silky smooth hair that just kind of frames her face. But fewer, so as I get into those darker colors, it should go a little bit faster. It should be in key there. Doesn't always happen. It's also going to add some depth into that image though. And then V17. Lori's just reading all of this. I'm not getting information, so I'm hoping it's not pertinent.
And Jesse and Heather are going to do a card exchange.
Oh, cool. Sounds like fun. When are they doing a card exchange?
I do not know.
If you guys can wait like 3 weeks, I'll join you. I am in the middle of writing a manual for a live class that I'm going to be teaching. I'm teaching 4 major Copic weekends this year called Copic College. And they're big live classes. They run all the way from Friday through Sundays. I'm doing 4 of them, and I'm in the middle of putting together the manual for those events. And so I need like 3 more weeks because my first event will be over, and then I'd love to join you for a card exchange if someone would let me play along. So again, this area behind her that comes down by her neck and shoulders is going to be the darkest. So that's where the most of the V17's going. Now I'm going to skip the V06, but I'm going to come back to my V04. I'm going to extend this a little bit further into those white areas. And notice I'm still starting from that bottom, and that's going to soften some of those edges. Some of those other layers.
Stefan says he has your card proudly displayed in his craft room.
Oh, I sent him a card. I did.
Oh, Anne's going to design an image for them to all color, and it'll be a few days for her to design it.
Okay.
So you'll have time to join.
Awesome. I would love to. So Stefan is actually going to be one of my assistants at Copic College if we can get our Copic College in Minneapolis filled up. We're working on doing that. That particular one is in May, and we're working on getting that filled up. And if we can get it filled up, Stefan's actually going to travel down from Canada and join me in Minneapolis, and he's going to be my assistant for the weekend. So we need people signed up. Now I have grabbed my colorless blender, and all I'm doing with this is I'm going right in on that highlight area, and I'm flicking outward from the highlight just to soften again those edges. I'm not trying to push the color a whole lot. I'm just trying to soften where that white is so it's not super distinct. I think I'm actually going to do that like 2 or 3 flicks of it over on the other side too. I'm actually pretty happy. I think I'm going to stop there.
When is the class in May?
Oh shoot. Lori, will you go look at my calendar? I'm going to be honest, I did make one mistake. It is actually over Mother's Day weekend. So it's the Sunday that's Mother's Day, which I think is affecting this. I think part of it is I have never done big stuff on Mother's Day, even though I have kids of my own. We have never done a big Mother's Day event. So I think it might be 11th, 12th, 13th.
Yeah.
Yes, it is the 11th, 12th, and 13th. And honest to goodness, if you guys have more questions about that, I would love to answer it. And if that's okay with Anne, I can answer more questions about that. But if not, if you go on my blog at scrapweaver.com, you can get like all the info. But we're gonna have a bunch of fun stuff. We're gonna have games, and it includes food, and it's gonna be cool. So let's see, we got hair. I'm pretty happy with hair. Lori's laughing at your comments. She's giggling over here on the side.
Jesse's wondering if the image can be a girl in a muscle car drag racing. And
they're talking about the car.
Yeah.
Image. I love it.
They want it to be a girl in a car racing Anne.
Okay. A car racing. So we're going to move on to her.
Preferably a Dodge Charger.
Nice.
Or a 1973 Dodge Dart. Yeah.
All right. So we're going to move on to the shirt. You guys are hilarious. I love it. We're going to move on to the shirt. So I'm keeping this a light blue violet, and the clothing is all in the blue violet range. I felt like I could kind of play around with it. It's still in the violets, but this way I could get those overalls to look even more like denim. And so I've added that blue into it with the blue violets. So this first one is BV00, and that's what I'm gonna base her shirt in. I kept the color combinations really, really simple. And a lot of these sections only get colored with 2 colors. I just felt like it didn't need a whole lot for fun. So we're gonna base that little light shirt in BV00, and then I'm just gonna add a tiny bit of shading with BV11. Again, I'm gonna shade from the kind of outside edges inward. Just adding that round shape to her. She's a cylinder. Bodies are cylinders. So we're kind of shading it from those outside edges inward, outer edges of the collar, sleeve, body. You have my daughter giggling beside me here. And then if you need to, you can go back and blend that with the BV00. You may not need to. These areas are so small that if you're working fairly quickly, it's gonna blend together pretty much on its own. So the shirt is really simple, just that 2 color combination. And I've got 2 colors on her overalls. So I'm gonna start with BV34, and this is gonna sound like it's in the wrong order, because most of mine I do from light to dark. But BV34, and then the other one I'm gonna use is a BV04. And this is one of those kind of oddities where the 04 ends up being slightly darker than the 34. And typically when that first number is lower, so we've got a 34 and a 04, the 3 means it's got more gray in it. So that should mean it'd be slightly darker. But for some reason in this case, it is not the case. So 04, I'm gonna turn her a little bit. I'm gonna come in from those edges, let her tummy. I'm gonna hit the straps and cuff. And I'll do a little bit on the inside of her leg, not as much.
Stefan is wondering what your favorite Copic color is.
Oh, good grief. Seriously? My favorite color?
Favorite Copic color?
I know, that is like the impossible question. I think the reason I love Copics is because of all the color. I really struggle with that one. Some of the colors I literally use the most, I wouldn't say it's my favorite color, but are blue violets because I use it on a ton of images for shading. And the series I use the most is probably BV 20, 23, and 25. I wouldn't say they're my favorite colors, but they're probably the ones I use the most because of all the shading or creating the shadows on objects. I don't know. I'm a person that through my life, my favorite color has changed from year to year. I literally have seasons of my life where yellow was my favorite color or blues. I'm a big blue purple person. If you've ever seen photos of me, I actually have mermaid hair. I have blue and purple in my hair. So I blended this back. I'm still coloring. I'm just talking about my hair now. I blended that back together with the lighter color, which was that BB34. And while we're chatting, I'm gonna let this dry for just a second because I'm gonna do one more thing on those jeans. Actually, let's do this. Her little clip is gonna be the same color. What?
Oh, Anne said that picking your favorite Copic marker is like asking which Stefan's favorite fur baby is.
That's exactly, that is a good point, Anne. It's asking me who my favorite daughter is. I have two amazingly beautiful, kind, generous daughters, and I could not pick between the two. My Copic markers, all of them, I love them all. And I do have ones that come out of the box more often, but I think especially since I do all the online tutorials, the video tutorials, I try purposely to use most of them. I love my earth tones, all of them. So I just did her clip and I based it in the BV34 and then I went right around those outer edges with just a tiny bit of the BV04. So she's got this cute little clip and I like the fact that it really stands out on her hair now too. Soften that with the BV34. So now that her jeans, her little overalls are dry, I want to make them look like they're kind of like a stone washed, or they're ones, she has 4 to edit. Did you see that? Jesse, I feel your pain. I actually have one, I have to edit one tomorrow because it goes live on Wednesday. We'll find out what that will be on Wednesday, won't we? So I have to do video editing tonight or tomorrow. So this is my colorless blender, and this is a fun little trick to make things look like stone wash denim. So now that this is dry, I'm gonna take this guy, and I have to do this very patiently, which I know none of us are patient as crafters, but I'm gonna come right in the center of her leg, and I'm gonna draw a little bit with a colorless blender, and then I'm gonna stop. And I'm gonna do it in the areas where you feel like you would have washed denim, that look of washed denim. So I'm gonna go right down the center of her legs. I'm gonna come up right on her tummy, kind of in the center of the bib, and kind of under the pockets. So I'm gonna let it sit for a second because that color is gonna feather outward and move as it dries. So I have to let it sit, but once it stops moving, I can come back and do another layer. Right down the center of her legs. Right down the center of her leg. I can do just a little bit on the top of the cuff if I want. Right in the center of her bib. But what this does is it starts pushing that color outward and through. If you flip your paper over, you can see exactly where you've put that colorless blender. So it's pushing the ink through, it's also pushing it outward a little bit, but it gives it this effect of worn denim, the stuff that you have lived in for a while and love. Either that or it's been out on a farm working hard. And so I kind of like the way that finishes. So I do it little tiny pieces. I did at least 3 or 4 rounds, pushed it. I do it in small amounts because if I sit and scribble and scribble and scribble, it'll push that ink right outside the lines. And so I do it in small increments and let it sit.
Jesse's wondering what paper you are coloring on.
Well, I normally color on Express It blending cards. So that's letter X and then press and then it blending card. It's hard to hear it, that sound of it. This time though, I'm actually working on the paper that Stefan usually works on, which is the hammer mill. I ordered some after I found out that he likes it and I am loving it. So I might be converted to a hammer mill paper girl, but it's definitely one that I like a lot. So this is what I'm working on tonight. So I've got that done, and then she's got these little shoes. Now I'm going to be honest, when I first colored these, I was thinking of it in terms of tennis shoes. And so I colored them as if they're tennis shoes. And then of course I went and looked at her other versions and they are not tennis shoes. They are cute little kind of ballet slip-ons, but for this pair, we're gonna make them tennis shoes. So I used the exact same colors I used on her hair. So what I did the soles of the shoes a little bit lighter color. I did V12. So I kept that lighter. And then I added small amounts.
Jessie has a question about the Express It.
Yeah.
And she says, have you found there was a bad batch? I just opened a new ream of Copic paper and it is making my markers sticky, like to the point where I have to clean them between every use.
It's more likely your markers versus the paper is what I would guess. Couple things could be happening, and I've actually got a perfect example right here. I color a lot, and so my markers end up looking like this fairly frequently. This is a color that I use a lot. This is the V04, and I did that to shade the soles and then fill in the top of her tennis shoes. If your lids look like that or the body of the marker has all that ink, it can actually gum up the nib and it can create that stickiness. So that could be that. And even if you've cleaned the lid out and cleaned the marker off, it could still be gummed up in the nib. So you might have to either change the nib or you can clean the nib. And you would do that by gently pulling it out. If it's the brush nib, you probably need to use tweezers, and you drop it in a plastic baggie. Put a few drops of colorless blender, not alcohol. You have to use the colorless blender, and then you squeeze it like 3 or 4 times. Literally just pinch, no twisting, just squeeze it. It's gonna let that ink bleed out and clear out that nib. Set it aside to dry, and then plug it back into your marker. That usually is the case. I'm gonna use a little bit of this V06 on her shoes and then V17. So, but I'll keep talking about the cleaning thing. So the other thing you could be dealing with is the paper. So if you're a person who adds a ton of color, you can, because of the way the ink sits on top of it, it's such a tight paper, the ink sits way up high, and so it all sits on top. Especially with darker colors, you can get that gummed up effect. And I know what you're talking about. I know exactly. I've seen it. So it could be that, but I don't know that it's a specific batch of paper. It might be your style of coloring now, especially if you've been coloring for a while and are more advanced. So I've got 3 little layers of color on the top of her shoes. And I don't need to go back through all 3, but I am gonna go back to the lighter. What was she saying?
She says, no, I don't think it's my marker. I cleaned the whole marker, changed the nib, found a new one, and refilled it, and it was all gross and gummy after one image. Weird. I have tried the Nia Solar White, and it doesn't seem to gum them up. So I was thinking it might be a change in paper or something. It's gummed even on the nib. Yeah,
no, I would definitely change your paper. I think it sounds like you've done all the right stuff. You've gone through all the right steps. So I would definitely try a different paper. The ones I've found, I've used Nina, and there's one of their index versions is a really good one. And then the other one is this hammer mill that I like a lot. Copic also makes a sketchbook that has some paper in it that I really like. But I can't, it's from Japan and I can only get it in the sketchbooks. I don't know that you can get single reams of it, but the hammer mill's really good. And then Nina Index, and those have a couple different versions. And so you have to, I don't have the number in front of me right now, but that's something I can look up and post later if people are interested. So I think I pretty much got her colored. The one thing you can do is if you want to add those little white details in her eye, you can come back in and add those little highlights with like just a white pen. And I don't think I did this in my sample, but if you wanted to, this is a Carolina Wink that I'm using, but there's all sorts of white. You can use a white opaque, Copic opaque, or you can use the Uniball. So I'm just gonna add 2 little dots just to show those little highlights in her eyes. So I've got this cute little girl. It's pretty good. I've got one little spot underneath her hairline that if I want to clean that up, I can come in with the colorless blender and push that in. That takes care of that. And then we get to make this cute little card. So we've got this great cutting file, and there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can cut it all out. I have one that's at least sort of cut out that I printed and cut out from the file that Anne sent, but again, I am not doing very well with my cutter. So what I did is I measured all of it and cut it out. So I have all my pieces. Let's see, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get this a little bit higher, maybe. Wiggle, wiggle. Lori's watching me do this and laughing. She's like, no, Mom, that's not working.
Well, I can't see it yet.
Oh, because it's delayed.
Yeah.
You'll get to watch it all wiggle around. What? Is it falling out again?
Yeah.
Oh, let's do that again. Or try not to. It's not going. All right, everyone, there's my house. And it's a little better. This is gonna be hilarious on the video. Okay. I think that's mostly in there. Okay, so I've got the card base, and you can use a bone folder and get that guy folded in half. Apologize for all the wiggling.
Can you use the SVG file without the cutting machine?
You can. What I did with mine, you could actually print it out because it has all the pieces colored. You can actually print it out and cut the pieces out instead of using a cutter. At least I did. And so I think you can actually just do that instead. My glue's not going to cooperate. Good grief. Get the big gun. So I've got all these fun pieces. And on this one, I truly just measured and cut all the pieces out. And I found some different shades of purple cardstock. Got this little strip. That one goes all the way to the edge. still coloring over there.
Oh, you just did the little white marker
Okay.
thing. I know you were coloring with a 0. I think you're putting
The little hairpiece
Yeah.
back, yeah. This is quite the delay. So you guys are gonna get all the answers to your questions much later after they happen. So I've got a little foam tape on the back of this part with the scallops. And that is gonna sit way over to the side. And you can do your image on there first if you want to. That might be easier. My little girl's gonna sit right on top of that. And she lines up right against that bottom edge. They're getting, oh yeah, there's their lovely view. So I've got that all stuck on, and then we have this cute little banner. And I debated what to do with this because it had this adorable writing on it, which of course then, I know, horrible, and they're gonna flash over at you at some point. So it has writing on it, and I ended up writing myself on there, and I put my hello there on there, but you could put anything on this little banner. If you use the cut file, it'll actually have the writing on it, so you don't have to do any writing, which is nice. So I have a little white one on top of purple, and then this guy is gonna sit right here. And then we have this fun little dot. Now, if you had a brad that matched, you could do that. What I did is I took a piece of cardstock and I punched out a hole. So I've got this little dot. Now it's going to go right there in a second. I'm going to put one little piece of foam tape because it's going to be bumped up, same level as the card. Put that on the tail and a little tape on the other end. So that'll sit right below that ribbon, that tab. And then what I did, because I wanted it to kind of look more dimensional, like a little brad, is that I used a little bit of glossy accents for that purple dot. Having all sorts of little issues here to create this card. Doesn't want to cooperate tonight. All right, here we go. So I'm going to glue that little guy down first. And then add the glossy accents on top, and that's just going to add a little bit of dimension. I can do it without destroying it. There we go. That just added a little bit of dimension to that dot, so it looks a little more like a brad. So that is our little card all finished up. And I did this one, and then I also did a version where I printed her in purple. So when I printed out my image, I actually changed the lines, so the lines themselves were purple instead of black, and did this exact same color group to create a little bit similar, almost a no line coloring image of her. So I've got those two pieces. But I think that is all of it. I think you have seen our card for tonight. I really, really appreciate you guys joining me. I will make sure to stick through to the end where you guys are caught up to me and answer questions. I'll do some typing if I need to answer the rest of the questions. Sorry about some of the little technical issues. I know we've scheduled that I will be back at another time to do this again for you. And always, if you've got questions for me specifically, you can contact me at my blog, or you can contact me through Copic In the Craftroom, either on Facebook or on YouTube. And I loved being here tonight with StampAnniething. It was a blast to do some coloring with you guys. So thanks so much for joining me.